In one corner stands Sukuna, the king of curses, a being so powerful he can break space itself, take seemingly infinite amounts of damage, and probably could also solo like 90% of all other anime universes by himself. And in the other corner we have a Magikarp. Magikarp, you splash! Okay, well clearly this wasn't gonna be a fair fight from the beginning, but what if we amped up the scale here just a little bit? Oh, whoops. Well, let's say that instead of one Sukuna versus one Magikarp, we're actually gonna have one Sukuna, but versus 1 trillion Magikarps. Who's gonna win that fight, huh? Well, I think the very scientific answer to this very relevant question will actually surprise you, and of course, to make things completely fair, let's give this matchup to a fully healed Prime Sukuna. I mean, he doesn't have to tackle this event right after his battle against the entire Jujutsu Sorcerer world, so we'll let him pop like a super potion and heal him to max HP before taking on this literal ocean of fishy foes. And right at the beginning of this fight, Sukuna just becomes completely engulfed in shadow as a massive wave of Magikarp starts towering over him. The fish Pokemon begin raining down upon him one by one, achieving terminal velocity as they descend into the ground all around him. But of course, as the head chef of the Malevolent Kitchen, Sukuna is ready to make some real sashimi with his signature techniques Cleave and Dismantle, as he completely effortlessly unleashes thousands and thousands of flying slashing attacks. Hundreds, if not thousands of Magikarps are immediately sliced into mincemeat, and the hailstorm of Magikarp becomes a red mist of Pokebloods. Wait, do Pokemon even have red bloods? Do Pokemon ever bleed? I don't know, I can't find anything about that in my Pokédex. Has a Pokemon ever canonically bled in the story? I'm actually not sure, but for now, let's get back to the actual carnage here. And not even a minute into this massive fight, the assault of Magikarp is seemingly without end. You see, Magikarp are actually able to leap high over mountains, at least according to their Pokédex entry. So from the top of the high tower of splashing, flailing fish, the Magikarp leap high into the air before then starting to fall in a real onslaught of quickly moving projectiles. Which means it's now time for Math with Manu. Math with Manu is a registered trademark of Tanuki Tales. Now, each and every Magikarp weighs about 10 kilograms, that's 22 burgers for my Americans out there, and since each Magikarp is also about 3 feet tall, if we cheat a little bit on the math and simplify it and assume that that is the surface area that's hitting the ground as well, then the terminal velocity of each Pokemon is going to be about 44 meters per second, or just shy of 100 miles per hour. Now, I don't know about you, but I personally would not want to be hit by a fish going 100 miles per hour in the face. I mean, I'm sure some of my subscribers here would probably like that, but you can just keep that to yourself, please. Sukuna is extremely fast and would be able to dodge Magikarp after Magikarp, and honestly, even if he got hit, would that make that much damage? But at the same time, as the ground begins to slowly disappear under a wave of blood and Magikarp, now totally covered by slippery fish and guts, as well as the surviving Magikarp flailing around, he is sure to start losing his footing. And even if somehow he keeps up his slashing attacks flying through the air, dicing as they come, he's still gonna have to be dealing with all of their mass raining down upon him as well at the same time. Meaning that our Prime Sukuna here really needs a new strategy, so he starts conjuring his Divine Flame in order to try and incinerate his Pokemon opponents. Now, since Divine Flame is a fire-type move obviously, and Magikarp is a water-type Pokemon, it's actually only half as effective as it should be normally, but that doesn't really help the Magikarp all that much, as you can imagine. After all, Divine Flame should have been ineffective against Jogo, the literal volcano curse, but he still got burned to a crisp by even hotter flames anyways. Which means that just like this, he's able to reduce thousands upon thousands of Magikarp to ash. No, not Ash Ketchum, like actual regular ash. Like the charred, burned, surprisingly appetizing smoldering remains of a koi Magikarp. But now it even smells kind of nice on his battlefield. And if Sukuna comes out of this battle alive, he's just gonna enjoy the biggest feast ever, because even though his favorite food is people, I'm sure he won't let this type of dish go to waste either. But turns out that a trillion, who would have thought, is a lot of Magikarp. So no matter how many Magikarp he keeps burning up, more and more just continue to fall upon him. Now, it's not just individual jumping Magikarp, but the entire tidal wave falling upon him in one fell swoop here. Sukuna knows that even with all of the cursed energy at his disposal, it's just too many, so Sukuna needs to make a tactical retreat here and dash out of the impact zone before he's just crushed under their insane weight. At which point you may be asking, how much weight is that exactly? And I'm very glad you asked this, because it's time for another segment of your favorite show within the show, with Manu. Big thanks to Game Freak and the fine folks over at the Pokemon Company though, because they made my job incredibly easy this time, since one Magikarp weighs exactly 10 kilograms, well then 1 trillion Magikarp would have a mass of 10 trillion kilograms. However, you might now still be confused because our feeble human brains have kind of a hard time working with such big numbers, so let's try to visualize just how many Magikarp we're actually talking about real quick here. Imagine if I took $1 trillion bills and laid them out end to end, they would be enough to reach all the way from the Earth to the sun. And as you can imagine, Magikarp are actually like way bigger than just a single dollar bill. In fact, a Magikarp is worth 500 Pokédollars, but that's actually like an economic thing, I guess. I'm talking about size here. I'd say comfortably at least $4 bills would match up to the length of a regular Magikarp, if not a little bit more. So these 1 trillion Magikarp in a line together would reach to the sun and back like 4 times at least. And so if all of these end up piling on top of Sukuna, how much weight are we actually talking here? Well, turns out that we actually have quite a nice reference of weight here, because 10 trillion kilograms is exactly about how much the Great Pyramid of Giza weighs as well. I mean, just imagine a whole Egyptian pyramid of solid stone falling right on top of him. He's just gonna be crushed no matter what. Even the King of Curses wouldn't just be able to survive getting smushed into a pancake. Then again, with his crazy ability to cleave and dismantle and cut through space itself, maybe he could even handle a pyramid just fine. Oh, wait, did I say 1 Great Pyramid of Giza? I of course lied. That was way too little. 10 trillion kilograms is the same as 1,837 Great Pyramids of Giza. My bad, but that kind of in fish form. So yeah, Sukuna is gonna need to absolutely avoid being crushed by that wave. And so he tries to speed away, but quickly realizes there's really no escape from the encroaching Magikarp wave, which at this point has probably laid waste to just about all of mainland Japan, if we're being honest. But I guess that was a sacrifice that Arceus was willing to make in order to stop the threat of Sukuna. And so now the King of Curses has realized that he can't just get away horizontally, so instead he comes up with a strategy that's thinking outside the box a little bit. He's gonna go just straight upwards. Using all of his slick acrobatic skills, he leaps from Magikarp to Magikarp through the air until at very last, he can finally make it to the top of the pile. The ones that he's not using as footholds, as he ascends the mountain of Magikarps, he slices out of his way with more cleaves and dismantles until at the very least, he reaches the apex of Mount Magikarp. And actually, while on his way up, he also notices one really cool Magikarp that's bright gold instead of orange. He takes that one and shoves it haphazardly into his waistband, because little did you know, in his free time, Sukuna actually is also a shiny hunter. And so while still jumping up and cleaving and slicing through, with one of his forearms, he gently pets it on the end, whispering to it, "You are my special." But actually, as luck would have it, with a shiny encounter rate of 1 in every 8,192 Pokemon in most of the games, there are actually gonna be 122,070,312 shiny Magikarps available for him to find during this encounter, if he actually manages to survive it. But now that he's actually on top, as these Magikarp waves come crashing down, all he really has to do is ride the wave. Somebody must have given this guy an HM, because surfs up Sukuna, he's just like a much deadlier surfing Pikachu at this point. And of course, now that he has the high ground, it should be smooth sailing from here, right? I mean, he stretches his many arms and decides it's time now to get down to business, slicing and dicing up this big stack of Magikarp before opening his new seafood restaurant for the rest of his life, where he's just gonna have so much fish to go through. I guess Uraume could probably freeze them up so they don't all spoil in like one day, and he then decides to activate his ultimate technique and opens his domain expansion, Malevolent Shrine, or in this case, a very literal Malevolent Kitchen. Looks like whoever's been writing the subtitles over at Crunchyroll can actually see the future, because they somehow managed to predict this very video. Oh, and did I make 2 Malevolent Kitchen jokes in one video? I sure did. What are you gonna do about it? But those are just never gonna get old. Now, from the scrambling whiskers of the Magikarp rises a clutter of rattling skulls and the gaping jaws of the Malevolent Shrine. And this gives Sukuna an effective range of 200 meters in every direction to unleash his constant and relentless cutting attacks. Meaning that the billions of Magikarp that still remain intact don't stand a chance as they're diced and sliced into pieces. They splash, flail, and tackle helplessly as layer after layer of Magikarp are slowly reduced into chunks. Sukuna on top lets out a maniacal laugh as he sees an endless pool of Magikarp blood flow from this endless mountain and goo of Magikarp bodies. In the end, I guess the Magikarp never really stood a chance. I mean, this is the King of Curses we're talking about. He overcame the entire world of Jujutsu sorcerers single-handedly, defeating all of their overpowered curse techniques one by one. I mean, surely if he can handle the likes of Gojo's Infinity, Hiroguma's Judgment, and Todo's Boogie Woogie, a bunch of Magikarp couldn't actually stand up to him even closely. Like, they can't even stand at all. Look at them. Because they don't have feet, you see? Okay. Most of the Magikarp don't even have a damaging move to begin with. They just use Splash, which, if you're a Pokemon fan, you know, does nothing at all. No damage, no effect, nothing. Of course, with a normal level distribution, it's pretty safe to assume that some of the Magikarp have actually learned Tackle at least at level 15. And that, of course, is a damaging move at the very least, but it's still one of the weakest attacks in the entire Pokemon universe and doesn't even have the benefit of a same type attack bonus as well, since Tackle is a normal type move and Magikarp is a water type Pokemon, so no stab damage whatsoever. Now, quite a reasonable number of those Magikarp might even have learned Flail, which they know at level 30, but it's nothing more than a glorified Tackle at this point. Some of the Magikarp may even have been level 100, since it's one of the only Pokemon that can be found in the wild at the highest possible level, but even a level 100 Magikarp probably can't do that much to Sukuna, because its stats are still pretty pitiful, really only being gifted in speed and defense, not that that helps at all against being sliced in half. That's of course because notoriously Magikarp are one of the all-time weakest, lowest stat Pokemon in the franchise. Now, if it had been 1 trillion Bidoofs, maybe they would have stood a chance. But in the meantime, Sukuna begins wiping his hands of the whole encounter as he releases his domain. He still laughs maniacally. Finally, his bloodlust has been satisfied after killing so many innocent lives. Looks like 1 trillion Magikarp was actually enough kills to make him feel somewhat fulfilled with the level of violence he needs in his heart. But then, suddenly he hears a catastrophic roar, and then another one, and then another one. The terrible sounds of a million deafening roars at once booms from within the mountain of Magikarp beneath his feet. Suddenly, shining glimmers of light begin to escape between the gaps of the Magikarp as the whole pile begins to shake and tremble, causing Sukuna to absolutely lose his balance. He's suddenly hit by a powerful concussive blast, a beam of light that causes him pain he hadn't felt since being hit by Gojo's Hollow Purple. He's knocked straight up into the air and then falls back onto his back onto the pile of Magikarp. Gasping for breath, he looks for the left side of his body and it's not there. He quickly sets his reverse curse technique into overdrive, trying to regenerate his missing arms as he looks on in despair at the writhing pile of Magikarp. And then suddenly, in an instant, millions of blue giant serpents explode from its depth, massive dragons soaring into the sky, beginning to descend upon his location. Because you see, mathematically, as all of those Magikarp were just stacked on top of each other using their 3 available moves of Splash, Tackle, and Flail, they weren't just targeting Sukuna, they were also accidentally targeting each other. Now the splashers themselves weren't doing any damage, but Splash only has a power point value of 40, meaning that after 40 splashes, they'd begin causing damage with the move Struggle. And on top of that, billions of Magikarp that were at a high enough level to use Tackle or Flail were doing damage right off the bat as well. And so of course, each time a Magikarp made another one faint, they would actually gain XP from that battle. Magikarp evolve at only level 20, and since many Magikarp can be found in the wild already above that level, many of them only needed to knock out a few others in order to actually level up high enough to trigger their own evolution. And any Magikarp that already knew Flail was already above level 30, easily clearing the bar for evolution anyways. And with billions of Magikarp being sacrificed, that meant that easily millions at least of Gyarados, if not even billions, were emerging from that mountain of dead Magikarp. And as you can imagine, this changes everything, because through leveling up, the very powerful Pokemon Gyarados can now access moves like Dragon Range and Hydro Pump. And if just one Magikarp was above level 54 when it evolves, it would gain access to one of the most powerful moves in all of Pokemon, Hyper Beam, the move that just deprived Sukuna of half of his limbs. And assuming just a relatively even level distribution, easily millions of these Gyarados would then have access to this move upon evolution. And so now, as Sukuna looked upon his own doom, storm clouds swept through the sky, delivering a torrent of rain. Many of the Gyarados were using Rain Dance, boosting their own power of their water-type moves and lowering the power of fire moves from Sukuna's ends. As you can imagine, that'll be actually important later on. And since a lot of the remaining Magikarp have also access to the ability Swift Swim, the ones who are left alive are also gonna be freaking fast right now. Now on the other end here, of course, Sukuna's reverse curse technique allows him to regenerate from his damage, so with his limbs now coming back, he slowly lifts himself back to the ground. The powerful rains dredged him, washing away the blood of a million Magikarp that was caked onto his skin. Up in the sky, you have to imagine many of the Gyarados dancing, many to bring the rain, but others were performing another dance, the Dragon Dance, which boosted their attack and special attack to truly ungodly levels of power. And so now millions of Gyarados now surrounding Sukuna as he once again prepared one of his most powerful attacks, the Divine Flame, and he fires it all around him in a last standoff. And as the smoke slowly dissipated in the rain, he smirked, ready to look upon the charred remains of all his opponents because no one had ever survived his Divine Flame. But as the smoke clears, he sees that they were almost completely undamaged. The Gyarados' permanent scowls look upon him with expressions of pure outrage. They were barely even singed by his attack. But that was impossible, because Sukuna even defeated the special Great Volcano Curse with that very technique. I mean, he had practically burned up the very concept of fire itself, so how in the world was this possible? Well, for one, Gyarados' water typing already makes fire moves only half as effective. On top of that, their Rain Dance had reduced the Divine Flame's power even further. I mean, Rain Dance is basically like a domain expansion for Pokemon if you really think about it. And so now to try and counter that, Sukuna reactivates his very own domain. He negates the rain, but it's kind of useless because too many of the Gyarados are comfortably out of range at this point anyways. At last, a worthy opponent is what Sukuna utters, staring on at the impossibly large onslaught of powerful attackers. Within some of their mouths, water starts swirling around, in others, beams of light danced as they charged their final attack. As the shiny Magikarp in Sukuna's waistband whispers the last words that he will ever hear. "You did well, Sukuna. I will remember you for as long as I live." Which honestly won't be that long, because from every direction, Sukuna is now bombarded by Hydro Pumps and Hyper Beams, and all of them were supercharged by the Gyarados' Dragon Dances as well, and I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say Sukuna is a dark fire type, so the Hydro Pumps were all very effective anyways. Let's be honest, even Sukuna's insanely powerful reverse curse technique would not be any help here, because there was nothing at all left to regenerate from. from. Sukuna was just completely vaporized into nothing by the devastating, overwhelming power of hundreds of millions of Gyarados. And really, all that is left to do after this battle was cheer for the fact that Japan has now finally been rid of the King of Curses. Now, of course, now the few survivors have to deal with cleaning up all the corpses of billions of Magikarp and capturing millions and or billions of wild Gyaradoses who were on a rampage as well, so kind of looked like they have even bigger fish to fry now. And come to think of it, it probably would take someone even stronger than Sukuna to actually take out this many Magikarp. 1 trillion is just too many. I mean, you'd have to be like ungodly powerful. You'd have to be practically invincible like Saitama from One Punch Man, or maybe even Goku from Dragon Ball Z. Imagine those two fighting Magikarp, I mean, how cool would it be if those two fought each other, right? Well, I guess you don't have to wonder for too long because I already made that video as well. So who will it be? Let me know in the comment before you watch the video. The man who can beat anything in one punch, or the Super Saiyan? Find out in the next versus video right here. Thanks so much for watching. This one was a wild one, but hopefully you enjoyed it. Let me know because I would be super down to make more of these. And yeah, hopefully we'll see you in the next video.